Welcome to B-Flow Sessions, the podcast where we help you find and stay in the flow on the water and in life. I'm your host, Brad Burton. Join me as I sit down with paddlers, athletes, and adventurers who are all seeking the flow. B-Flow Sessions is brought to you by our friends at Pucon Kayak Retreat. Are you dreaming of a Chilean whitewater escape this winter? Picture turquoise rapids, warm sunny days, and world-class rivers for every skill level, all based out of a riverside retreat built by paddlers for paddlers. If that sounds like your kind of winter, then Pucon Kayak Retreat is the place. To learn more or to book your dream kayak trip, reach out to me directly at bflowkayak@gmail.com and I'll help you get connected. B-Flow Sessions is powered by Dagger Kayaks. Wherever there's water, Dagger Kayaks will help you find your flow. Team-tested, paddler-proven designs for all paddlers and all water. And thanks to our partners at Sawyer Paddles, Stohlquist PFDs, and Level 6 Gear for keeping us in the flow.
Welcome to the next episode of B-Flow Session, and today I am joined by a guy who's become a really good friend of mine in just a short period of time. Just met him last fall on the Golly, but everybody knows him from his Facebook channel. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Bartl.
Thank you. Round of applause of all the people that can hear us and watch. Yeah.
So Eric is, one of the top paddlers in the world, and he's also a preeminent kayak instructor. He is based out of the Cincinnati area and launched a program called Ohio Kayak Instruction, and it has taken off and really blossomed, and it's become that whole Ohio region now is really booming for kayakers. And his Facebook page where he puts questions out there. Sometimes gets some people riled up sometimes, and he probably does that on purpose. And we're going to hear about that as well. But again, Eric, thanks for being on B-Flow Sessions.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about all sorts of stuff. This is going to be a really good session. I'm really fired up, and feel free to throw me hardball questions. It's like, oh, now you get a chance to ask the person who's behind all the conflict and shenanigans.
That's right.
So cool. All right, what do we want to start with?
We'll get into that, but I want to start with, how did you find your flow in kayaking?
Well, that's a really good question. Growing up in Ohio, there's not tons of whitewater here, but I really got hooked on it when I was younger. Primarily, I started at 13, and as soon as I got started being around rivers, I just loved being in the water. And I think it had something to do with like the self-control of just when you're in your boat, you have full control over what you're doing. And that kind of flourished and started me on the journey. So now I've been all over the place, paddling and competing and teaching and doing all sorts of stuff to try to build the paddling community. So that's where it started.
And then, like, I think you went on to New River Kayak Academy, which is no longer a thing. But tell us about that, and I'm sure both of us have a similar mentor there, in Dave Hughes.
Yep. So this is Brad. This is gonna be tough for me because I don't like talking about myself very much. But I went to New River Academy and absolutely loved it. That's what kind of got me really dove into the paddling community. And then similar to you, there was a point where I was taking a break and had little kids and a career, and I was really passionate about water quality and like trying to clean rivers in Ohio. And then I kind of realized the real way to improve water quality might in fact be to just get people caring about rivers and getting people on the river to value them and respect them and be like, hey, we want to take care of these things. So not to dive into what started Ohio Kayak Instruction, but that's the primary motivator behind Ohio Kayak Instruction, is simply, if people don't care until it directly affects them. And once something directly affects someone, then they care about it. And so the more people that paddle, the more people that'll be invested in taking care of the local rivers and streams and things like that. So Yeah.
Let's just dive right into Ohio Kayak Instruction then. And obviously your motive of starting that was to get more people on the river, so they care about the river, so they want to keep the rivers clean. But take us through the whole process of how you created that and how you've been able to grow that.
Yeah. Um, well, 2 years ago, gosh, maybe I know it's been 4 years ago. I think we officially launched Ohio Kayak Construction 2 years ago, and prior to that, we were still teaching, and I was still teaching a Monday night class and doing some basic stuff. But I really realized that to grow this and get more people passionate, I had to start going where the people are. And I actually, as much as I post on social media, I really don't like social media very much. But I recognize that if you want to reach people in today's world, you have to go into the matrix, and you have to go and you have to sometimes you have to post controversial things. So the people that are watching this, I'm not nearly as controversial when you actually talk to me in real life as I might seem on social media. And just also don't believe everything you read on the internet. It's like I'm doing that for a very specific purpose, and I am being controversial sometimes. Sometimes I'm very adamant in what I'm posting and what But at the end of the day, it's we are trying to drive engagement and get people to start a discussion and talk about these things. So.
So, of your topics, what's been one of the most controversial? What's got the most people riled up and got the most comments?
Ooh, that's a good question. And this is actually good for anyone that wants to create content in paddling. The biggest one is probably anything safety related. So you
Yeah.
post anything safety related, and that will just go crazy. Special the big one is definitely how you tie kayaks down on roof racks and things like that. Uh,
Yeah.
and I also just want to any serious paddlers that are watching this right now, don't think for 1 second I didn't notice that you left me completely hanging, getting attacked left and right, while people were attacking me for doing the one strap method, and it's pretty well established, and I was just the one to admit it and say it, which is that most serious paddlers are using that method. Whether it's right or wrong is not for me to say. What I will say is that everyone does it. And so that was
I'd take
probably,
it a step further, and I'll do one piece of rope.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I actually filmed a video today with the one strap method, but using rope to do it. And that video will go up next week. But yeah, so whether you like it or not, I understand why people are so against it, but I also understand that it is commonplace, very much commonplace. And if people are that passionate about it, we should talk about it more, and have more discussions about it. So let's see what else. Anything safety related, especially if I post anything about Swiftwater, seems to be very controversial. I have a controversial take, and Brad, I think you and I are on the same side on this. What role should be taught first is very controversial.
Yeah.
That is always a controversial topic. I love it. I think it's a good discussion. Most people know my stance, which is I teach the C2C role first, because there is less likelihood of you screwing it up, and the student learning a bad habit. So you either do it correctly or you're not coming up. Period. End of discussion. Like, you either are going to use your hips to right the boat or you're not. And so that's why I really value that method. And I'm not against the sweep roll, I'm not against the extended paddle roll, but those are not the things I'm going to teach first. And whenever I put that, that can be controversial for sure, because people, but in actuality, I use a sweep roll as my primary role. I'm not against using the
Right.
sweep roll. It's just that I don't teach it to a beginner first. It's way easier for a beginner to go from a C2C roll to a sweep roll than it is to try to get them to go from the sweep roll to the C2C roll, in my opinion. So, but yeah, so those are some of the
Yeah, I totally
controversial
agree, and I
ones.
think it's easier. And I commented on one of your posts about it. It's easier to manipulate the body. Like, it's easier to guide the student out to the sweep and then let them feel
Yes.
kinesthetically what's that's like and where their paddle should be, and then tell them to hip snap, as
Yes.
opposed to like I have a really hard time being in the right position as an instructor in the water for the sweep roll. So
Yep.
I think it's much easier for the C to C.
Yeah, and both are great, and we end up teaching both in our classes, but we teach the C2C first, and most of the things we do here in Ohio, because I think it gives people a better fundamentals, and less likelihood for failure and things like that. So,
Well, since you
trying
brought
to
up the
think.
role and controversial things, I do want to go into this. Let's discuss this. So, for everybody listening
Let's
out
do
there,
it.
keep in mind that I stopped paddling and stopped teaching kayaking maybe before Eric learned how to kayak. So we definitely are in, like, I stopped in 2005. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So
Okay.
we're in different generations with different boats, different techniques and things like that. Now I'm coming back to the sport. I'm trying to, I'm loving the new designs, and I'm trying to wrap my head around some of the things are still the way we taught them, from the 90s, or maybe even people older than me in the 80s. Some we have very different new techniques. Talk me through the finish of a sweep or a C2C roll, and you're looking back down at your stern and the paddle is still in the water, versus how I was taught, which is to finish with your head on your ear so your eyes are forward and your paddle's out of the water so you finish the roll.
I love it. I love it. This is so good. Okay. The like people that are super adamant about roles, they're gonna love this one. Okay. So if I could tell anyone one thing, one thing you're screwing up with your paddling, and this applies to every type of paddling, it's torso rotation. You're not rotating your torso
Mm,
enough. 100%,
yeah,
whether you're play boating, whether you're creek boating, whether you're doing a stern squirt, doesn't matter what type of kayaking you're doing, you are not rotating your torso enough for whatever maneuver
yeah.
you're doing. And what I've noticed is when you're doing sweep roll, it is a torso rotation maneuver where you're starting
Hmm.
with your torso on the left side of the boat, you're taking that stroke, and you're finishing with your torso on the other side of the boat. And so the body follows where the head goes. If the head, it's the same concept of why we tell people you don't look at the strainer or you don't look at the sieve, because your boat is going to start drifting, and that, like, if you're looking at the hazard on the river, your boat is going to slowly, whether you realize it or not, start turning towards that object. And so it's the same principle in my mind. I'm not against, so I am against finishing with your head on your ear. Um, I believe you need to, if you want to look straight ahead, I'm fine with that, but your torso needs to be rotated while you're still looking straight ahead. So if you want to come up looking straight ahead, totally fine, as long as your torso actually rotated. But what I found
And,
is when,
and I think with the way I described it is more C to C, and what you're showing and demonstrating and talking about is more sweep roll.
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry, are we talking sweep roll or are we talking C to C roll?
Well, I mean, just either. I mean, like I said, I always teach the sweep, or excuse me, the C to C first. So I always, you're in a setup, and then you sweep out to 90 degrees, and then you hip snap. And what
Yeah.
I've learned is that in these newer boats, you have to have that big torso rotation. And that wasn't taught whenever I was teaching kayaking. And so I think that's the part that I'm missing. And again, like, I'm not really challenging you saying this is wrong. I'm trying to
No?
wrap my head around the
Why?
biomechanics behind it for why it's taught that way now.
Yeah. So,
And you're doing a good
um,
job explaining it. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So on the C2C roll, I'm less of a stickler of looking down and finishing, like looking, because it is a side to side motion instead of a front
Right.
to back with torso rotation. If you're
Yes.
doing a C2C roll, I I I am not, like, I wouldn't like tell a student they're wrong if they finished look like with their head, if they finished looking straight forward. But they had their head on their shoulder and they had their paddle in the correct finish position, I'd be totally fine with that. on a C2C. It's just that I've noticed that when people are looking straight ahead when they finish, or their head, it's the start of a bad habit that I'll have to
Yeah, I
fix
get that.
later on. And so if they finish looking over to the right, um, paddling is all about muscle memory. And so I'm trying to instill the correct muscle memory in class 1 and 2 before they step up, so that when they flip in whitewater, they have the fundamentals, and you know, they're less likely to freak out. Um,
Yeah.
but but they still going to happen. I can try to do everything I can, but sometimes people will have that panic moment in whitewater situation. They flip over in the rapid, and everything I taught them went out the window because
That's right.
they're letting the fear control dictate what they're doing. So
Right.
yeah.
So how do you what's some of your tips and tricks for getting students comfortable upside down?
Ooh, I like this one. This is a good question. Washing machine is a good one we do. So let's say I had some. All right, I'm not going to give a name, but I'm going to give an example. I had a student last year who came to me, and he was from South America, and he had been in a horrible car accident where a van with him and his friends was on the side of a pretty major road in South America, and it rolled down the hill into a river. And he broke several bones in his body and almost drowned, and had to like rip himself out of this vehicle. And
Oh
so
my gosh.
traumatized, serious trauma
Yeah.
associated with water. Several of his friends passed away, and so
Mm,
he wanted to learn whitewater kayaking because he wanted to get over that fear. He's not the
right.
only one that's come to me and been like, okay, I want to get over this fear. Um, there's a reason also that uh, water is used in almost every special forces training. There's a reason that they use it
Hmm.
for Navy SEALs. There's a reason they use it for Army Rangers. There's a reason because it is so terrifying, and it is what
Right.
can mentally break someone. And um, the best paddlers have accepted that fear, and have mastered that fear. Same with some of the best special forces. They've rationalized, okay, this could happen. But some of the tips to get people over the beginning. So we're talking, class 5. Let's talk basics. The first thing you do, if you have a beginner who's really, really freaked out, I just will tell them very calmly, we're going to flip upside down, and I'm going to flip you back. You will be underwater for less than a second. Can you hold your breath for a second? Yes. They'll normally nod. They're scared, but I'll flip them over, and then I'll flip them right back, starting super mellow, super slow. And then we'll go, okay, this time we're going to do 3 seconds or 5 seconds, and I'll flip them over, and, they'll come right back after 3 seconds. And then I'll say, this time, I want you to stay under there as long as you can, and then I want you to tap when you run out of air and you need to come upright. So we'll do the
Love it.
third thing is that. And then the fourth thing is, this time I want you to lean forward, lean backward, lean side to side. I want you to just while you're under there, just rock around a little bit and see how it feels. Get the feeling of being upside down in different positions. And then once you've explored leaning forward, back, side to side, then tap, and I'll bring you upright. So I like to do all of that if I'm working one on one with someone before ever introducing the T rescue, the wet exit, and that's with me standing in the water with them.
Yeah.
If I have the opportunity to teach one on one with someone, if I'm in a group setting, I don't always have that option. But if I have someone who's really nervous and scared, I always like to start out that way. And then we will transition. After we've done that, then I'll transition. We'll do a wet exit right then and there. After I've broken the fear, the first level of trauma is what I'll call it. Um,
Yeah.
once they're at least somewhat comfortable, then we'll perform a wet exit, and then I can start focusing on things like T rescues, hand of gods, parallel rescues, or H rescues, things, and we can start stepping up from there. So
Very cool.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, I have a tendency to rant. Feel free to cut me off
No,
if
you're
I'm
good.
talking too long.
That's why you're here. So one of
Cool.
the other questions, and a little plug here. I was the one that gave you this question. The best kayaking college, and we all know the answer. The Catamounts of
That's
Western Carolina is the
that's
answer to that
right.
question. And
The
Eric
one
is
and only.
also a proud Catamount. So let's go back to some story time and tell us about some of those days at Western Carolina. You and Mike and those guys just charging hard and going to the slab and playing and competing
So
and all that stuff. Talk to us about those days.
all right. It's gonna start real dark, and then it'll get light. So, I first, I went to school down there. I was so excited. I was so fired up. But something I noticed was I went down there and I'm messaging all these people, and I'm trying to like find people to boat with, and nobody knows me. Nobody knows
Uh,
what. Nobody knows my skills. Nobody knows what I can do, and so I spent that first year really not finding anyone to paddle with my freshman year of college, which really was kind of sad. And this is common in all areas of whitewater paddling, but I would say it's very common in the Southeast. If you're not
yeah,
in a specific crew, you are
yeah,
not you're not going to get they're not, no one's going to take you on those serious runs.
right,
And I understand the gatekeeping. I understand why people do it. I just, for me as an outsider, it sucked because I had the class five abilities, and I was a, freshman in college. I had already spent 2 years of my life in South America. I had spent 4 years as a guide and instructor. I already had like, I was already a really solid paddler. I just had never done these runs before in the Southeast.
right.
So I was like, shit, well, this sucks. And then I met someone named Mike Ferraro. And all you people watching did not know Mike back in the day. Okay.
Hmm.
Nobody knew who he was. He was a no name. All right. And Mike and I met each other. We both went to Western, and no, Mike was having the same issue. Nobody would like, respond to him. We couldn't get any invites on like trying to do harder runs. And so we were like, you know what? We're both solid paddlers. We're just going to start showing ourselves down everything. And that's what we did.
Nice.
We showed ourselves down the Raven Fork. We showed ourselves down the Toxaway. We showed ourselves down at some of the hardest runs in the Southeast. We showed ourselves
Yeah,
down because we knew our abilities, and we also knew when it was perfectly fine we scouted everything. And we knew when it was perfectly fine to look at the rapid. We didn't see the line or we were unsure about it, and we walked it. Okay. A first run down Raven Fork, we walked all sorts of stuff. And then we also ended up running things. I don't want to get Mike or I into any trouble, but we ended up running a couple things that we found out afterwards were like mandatory portages, because we didn't know that there were consequences. We hadn't seen the run dry, but if we had been offline on those, we especially one in particular right after Big Boy, if we had been offline, we probably would have been dead. So, um, yeah, we showed ourselves down very slowly, very calmly, in a very, you know, very safe way. Um, yeah, and that's how we started boating. And then Mike and I started boating everything. And then we started getting the messages and the phone calls and the like, and it's like, okay, now I understand. Now that I have to be in this position, I totally understand why people are like the gatekeeper. Like, I get it. I see both sides of it.
yeah.
But we started taking some people down, some newer paddler. I say newer, some solid paddlers down these class five runs. Yeah. So lots of good times. I have my undergrad from Western Carolina. I studied geohydrology, so flow dynamics, and we did a lot of like studying on contaminant tracking through groundwater and through stream systems and things like that. How do things move through the water systems, both in the groundwater and in surface water? And I always knew I wanted to go into water quality, and I really have always deeply cared about our rivers, and I wanted to,
Mm,
everyone in college, they're like, I have these big, I'm going to change the world. And
mm.
then enter the workforce and you're like, okay, well, yelling at people and trying, like, you, you realize how the world really works. And it comes down to, like, you just have to get people to care. That's the secret. If you get people to care about something enough, then they will fight for it. So, yeah. So,
Well, think back now to your kayaking history and your career, and I want you to think if you can tell me about a perfect flow day. So one of those days that just sticks out to you is like, man, this was epic. Everything was right on the river this day.
oh man, Raven Fork. I hold to this day that Raven Fork is probably one of the most difficult runs. I haven't seen it after the hurricanes, but pre hurricane, Raven Fork was probably one of my favorite runs. In the southeast, and every time, I am a huge fan of class 4, class 5 boulder gardens where it is
Mm,
technical move after technical move. But if you're online, you enter, what the paddlers refer to as the flow state. And I really enjoy paddling class 5 rapids that have multiple back-to-back maneuvers where you need to be online and on point with those. And Raven Fork is one of those runs where you can do that. And it has serious consequences if you are offline or making mistakes, but it is one of those runs where um, uh, it's Boulder Garden after Boulder Garden, and I really, really enjoy that run. So,
what about a day that didn't go so well? I call it the flood day. Maybe a day that started off kind of good, and it was like, oh, this is in trouble, and it gets a little scary, but then it ends up being a good tale to tell around the campfire.
okay, I've had a couple of them, as most serious paddlers have. The one I'm going to tell was in Chile. Um, Okay, there is a waterfall in South America in Chile, called the Nalawe. It's a 30-footer. It is a 30-foot vertical slide into 30 feet of free fall. So the actual height of it is a 60-foot waterfall, but
Mm,
you don't actually enter free fall. Like, you're on a very vertical slide for the first 30 feet, and then you have 30 feet of free fall. However, at the bottom of this waterfall, there's the boil, which is, every waterfall has a boil. Half of the boil sent you into a cave, half of the boil sent you onto the correct line. And I had a skirt implosion. Um,
mm.
I had a skirt implosion on that waterfall, and I got pushed into the cave. And it was it was a very serious situation, and it was seriously an act of God that I'm still alive. And I got pushed into the cave, I was underwater, and I was feeling the rock wall, and I was just grabbing and trying to pull my way up. And there just happened to be handhold after handhold after handhold in the dark, pitch black. I can't see anything. And then all of a sudden, I could breathe, but I'm still in the
Mm,
cave, but I could breathe. And I'm holding myself out of water, breathing. Nobody can easily get to me. It was a very, very bad situation. It's kind of and long story short, I ended up being able to kind of work my way around the backside or behind the veil of the waterfall to get out. But
mm.
that was a really not fun day, and the closest I've ever come. That set me back about 2 years. I think most people that have been paddling have had a serious situation that has set their paddling back, and also like put some fear into them. And so it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It doesn't have to be as serious as what I'm explaining. It could be you ran the lower yock and you got pinned for a second, or and then that fear is really hard to overcome. And it took me years to overcome that. I didn't
Yeah.
really boat serious high waterfalls for 2 years after that. So and to this day, I'm like, I don't need to be running big waterfalls anymore. I just, it's like, I still like them, but I don't need to run anything over like 50 feet anymore. It's just not something that I'm really interested in doing. So,
Yeah, me neither. Yeah.
yeah.
And I never really got big into waterfalls. I mean, I definitely, did the 30, 40, 50 footers, but that was always about as high as I wanted to go.
Yeah, I did Middle Palagine, which is no longer in existence, which was the highest waterfall I did, and I really have no desire to go higher than that. Was a 75 footer, and I don't really have any desire to go up to those. Maybe Mexico, maybe, but the risk to reward on high level waterfalls for me just isn't there. You take one
Yeah,
wrong stroke and you land flat, and now you are paralyzed, or you have serious back issues for the rest of your life, or it's just it's not worth it for me to run those big waterfalls. And to the people that love doing it, great. Um,
sure.
I. I have mad respect for people that do it. I just it's not there for me. The risk versus reward analysis is just not worth it. So and I
Yeah,
think a lot of people come to that conclusion.
for sure. Yeah. I mean, there's so much great whitewater that you can do that you're not, there's always risk in whitewater, but to me, waterfalls just taking it up to a whole nother level. Again, without the reward, like running some just great classic rapid that doesn't have that risk and has even more reward to me. I never found them, like, I found them super scary and just act like some people that love them, they love that free fall. And I always love being in the water, going with the flow, manipulating my boat and paddle to flow with the water. And like you said, kind of make my way down really complex rapids or on big water and to get to the top of a wave and then seeing and then being down the trough and then getting pushed into a big hole, but it's totally deep so I can cartwheel my way out of it. Those type of things was always way more fun to me than big waterfalls. But
Yeah. I think one thing that also set me back was I was using Snapdragons back in the day, and even with
mm,
the implosion bars and all the stuff, they just didn't work on big waterfalls. So
mm,
you have a couple swims off of big waterfalls, and it will change how you view big waterfalls. I probably would have, if I had been in a good Rand skirt, or if I had been in a good skirt that didn't implode on me, I probably would have stepped it up a little more in my younger years, but I don't think I would have done anything. Maybe I wouldn't have gone higher than 100 for sure. But I really just have, yeah, but that's a gear thing. Like, I don't want a skirt that's going to implode, and so I don't care if it's a little leaky on me. If I'm going to go run a waterfall, I'm going to be in a seal, because I know, like, the rubber Rand seal, because I know that thing is never coming off that kayak. It is so on there. Yeah. So, shameless plug for Seal. I get no money for saying
yeah.
that. I think IRs are great as well, but for me, if I run a waterfall, I'm going to be in a Seal, and I know they're not as dry as the Klingon and some of the others, but that's just me. So,
I just got a level 6 king, and I've not had it on any serious whitewater yet. But if there's any way that thing comes off, it's impossible because it takes I got to do an arm workout to get it on. So
yeah. I am curious about that skirt. I've heard a lot of people love it. I'm going to be curious how it holds up, like, year after year of boating with it. If it's built as well as the IRs. In my mind, the IR is like the gold standard of, like, best spray skirts you could possibly buy. And, but I also am a huge fan of Seal because they make their skirts in the United States, and that matters to me.
Yeah.
They have to import their materials because there's nobody that makes neoprene and those materials in the United States, but they stitch them here in the U.S. So I really like
That's
that.
super
And
cool.
yeah.
Let's eddy out and take a quick break. Do you need a break from the cold of a North American winter? Then let's head south to the best whitewater on earth at Pucon Kayak Retreat. Email me at bflowkayak@gmail.com to learn more about how you can take the ultimate paddling adventure in the heart of Chile. Now let's peel out and head downstream.
So let's go to the current and downstream. Tell us, a little bit more about Ohio Kayak Instruction and some of the events you have coming up, maybe
Okay.
this spring and summer. And
Yep.
then downstream, I know you've got a big trip to Chile planned in February.
Yeah. So we'll start with the events I'm organizing. So I organize 3 events a year that are they end up in our budget, they end up costing us money and time, but we organize them as community events because we want to build the paddling community. So we take financial hits to do it, but we organize 3 events a year. So we do a freestyle event every May, and then we do a like slalom slash like weekend of all sorts of fun kayak races in October. And then in
Mm,
February, every year I organize a downriver race that is just super fun and I organize it in February because I don't want wreck boaters, or I don't want I want serious paddlers only. Only serious kayakers are going to show up in February for a kayak race.
right.
It's just how it is. So if you're
Yeah.
willing to go freeze your butt off, that's what I'm looking for. So February, we always do a little Miami race. I had to cancel it this year at the put in because we had an ice melt, like the runoff. So the river rose and then all the ice, and it was like sheet flowed downriver all at the same time. And it just happened to be the one day that we were organizing the kayak race, happened to be the day where all the ice broke loose and was coming down. You couldn't even get paddle strokes in. That's how it would have been it would have been irresponsible of me to do a mass start race with so much ice and debris, and I felt it was the right call to cancel the race. But at the same time, it was a good time. We all had blast and had fun and prizes and everything. We just did a raffle, and yeah. So but 3 events a year is what we organized, and then we also do, so that's the free stuff. Anybody can come to that. It costs nothing. There's no registration fees on anything we organize. And then we organize classes and clinics. So I basically organize a 1 night a week class almost year round. So in the winter months, we're in a swimming pool on Friday nights. In the summer months, it's a Monday night class on the Little Miami in Dayton, Ohio. And we're almost always, we have 1 night a week where I'm teaching paddling on a river or in a pool. And I could not do it. We could not be doing what we're doing with Ohio Kayak Instruction without incredibly awesome volunteers who are showing up and volunteering their time to help me get more people into the sport. So our Monday night class, I think we started with about 30 students this year. 32, I think, was the
Wow.
registration. It's because I had 10 volunteers. I might have had 12 volunteers when we started. So we were able, it's because I can keep the ratios good because I have so many volunteers that are willing to teach and donate their time to help us. So um, it's yeah, it's incredible. So we do clinics and stuff like that, but mostly, most of the stuff we do, I like organizing classes more than I like doing private instruction, because as much as I love private instruction, it's like teaching kayaking is very difficult to make any money doing it. And I like the group classes just are easier for us to generate revenue than one-on-one instruction. So
Sure.
yeah, that's why we do it. We do offer
And then
it.
what about your trip to Chile at the Pucon
Oh
kayak retreat?
yes. Thank you. I'm also like the worst at shameless plugs and things like that.
Oh,
We are
that's
do
what I'm all about, baby.
We're doing a trip to Chile in February, which is going to be like July flows. So the seasons are flipped, where in South America, it's summer when we're in winter here. So it'll be like July basically down in South America. And that trip is almost full actually. But
Wow.
I know it's awesome. So we are organizing a huge trip down to Pucon, Chile. We're doing a 1 week in Pucon, Chile, and then the second week will be at the Fuda Lufu. We only have 6 people that are allowed to go to the Fuda Lufu, and there's only 1 or 2 spots left in that second week. But that first week, there's still some openings. But it's going to be absolutely incredible. We break down into 3 groups, so there's going to be a beginner, intermediate, and advanced group, and all in, I think last year, I think it was about 3,500 is what it cost ballpark for for 8 days of whitewater kayaking in South America, which is like pretty reasonable, I thought, for like what is provided and what you get. Like it's an all inclusive that included your plane flight, your kayak rental, your hostel, your food, your lodging, your everything. And prices have gone up, fuel's gone up. I expect it'll be a little more this year. But it's pretty incredible. I highly recommend people join. We have set it up so that you only have to take 5 days of PTO. So if somebody like has a full-time job and they can only take so much vacay time, you'd take 5 days of PTO. We fly out on a Sunday and then we return on a Saturday or Sunday. No, we fly out on a Saturday and then we return on a Sunday. So it's 8 days total. So, but if you're
Wow.
interested in joining, hit me up. We've got a few more spots. So yeah,
Yeah,
Brad, are you
it's
taking
great.
a crew down this year?
Um, I am hoping to go down just either me and my wife or me and a buddy. So I'm
Okay,
not like organizing and running a trip. It's more just like
cool.
um, my own little trip, you kind of explore and get used to the lay of the land, and then maybe start doing some trips the following year. Where are you
Yeah.
guys staying when you're on the Fuda?
So David is taking care of all the logistics, and so we're
Oh,
like
cool.
booking through David. But I'm not sure the exact lodging. We're going to stay down at the Fuda, but I'm sure that it will be pretty incredible because everything like I know where we've stayed before at the Fuda, and the lodging was absolutely incredible down there. And so you're literally like right on the river, and it's
Yeah,
um, like the Fuda Fu is like one of those rivers where you you just have to experience it, and then you're like, oh my god, there's nothing like this.
it's
Like
it's heaven on earth
heaven on earth. That's the best way to describe it. Heaven on earth, and you cannot possibly understand until you go, and then you're like, okay, this is everything everyone has always said it is. The Fuda Fu is probably uh, it's one of the best rivers in the world, hands down.
for sure, for sure. Um, let's now talk about some. We've talked a lot about advice and things, but I want to be more specific now. If you have you see lots of beginners, so
Mhm.
somebody comes to you or they hit you up and they say, "Hey, what's your number one piece of advice for someone learning to kayak?"
First, number one piece of advice: stay calm.
Mm,
Like master your fear and stay calm. Keep your heart rate under control. Would be like the most important thing. If you can master the fear and stay calm, that puts you so far ahead in the sport. The second thing that I tell everyone, and this really came from the ACA, so this isn't like my thing. Uh, is like everyone, including myself, does not rotate their torso enough when doing all their
mm.
maneuvers. Doesn't matter bow draw, forward stroke, peel outs, stern squirts. Doesn't matter what you're doing. You're probably not rotating your upper body and torso enough. So
Yeah.
I've really been working on some physical therapy and really stretching out the flexibility in those avenues to improve my paddling personally. And I tell my students to do it as well because it's really powerful. So I'm going to keep it super vague, super simple. Master your fear, stay calm on the river, and more torso rotation. That's what I would say.
Now think about someone older who took time off from the sport. I've been encountering lots of people like myself who stepped away from the sport for various reasons, and now they're coming back to it. But now maybe the body creaks a little bit more. They've got experience, but they've stepped away for a long time. Boats have changed, skills, some techniques have changed, and things, and they're trying to get back into the sport at whatever level. What advice would you have to that person?
Mobility is key. Flexibility is key. Very important. Very, very important. I'd say that's the number one thing with, you know, any anyone, but especially an older paddler. You need to maintain that. Like you need to be stretching daily, and you need
Yeah,
to be stretching a lot. And if you think you're stretching enough, you're not. So
right.
that's the first thing I would say. Second thing, like know your limits, and like what when know what you are and aren't comfortable with, and don't care. Um, More recently I've cared about this, but for when I started Ohio Kayak Instruction, I did not care, and honestly, to this day, I don't care what people think of me. And I, as much as I love everyone, it your opinion is not going to change what I do. And so, regardless of if you are an older paddler or a younger paddler, don't be worried about what people think of you because people are busy in their own lives and doing their own thing. And like you think, oh my God, nobody cares. Like it's just
Right.
kayaking. It's not that serious. Nobody cares. So like, I don't know. That would be my advice.
So now the Pucon kayak retreat pro flow hot tip. If somebody wanted to start a kayak business, they wanted to start teaching kayaking, um, what would be your pro flow hot tip for that?
Okay. I'm so fired up. Number one tip, keep things simple. Do not try to make things complicated. And oh, I got to put out the perfect content. My website needs to be perfect. And yeah, if you've seen anything I've done, I have typos and spelling errors and everything I put out. I have, I get my dates mixed up. I make mistakes all the time. I am failing on a regular basis, but I succeed way more than I fail, which is why I'm doing, able to do what I'm doing. So if I was giving anyone advice, it would be don't worry about setting up. If you are a brand new paddler and you want to start teaching others, don't even worry about setting up an LLC. If your net worth is under $250,000, do not worry about setting up an LLC. Operate as a sole proprietorship and start teaching kayakers and start getting on the water. And this is what I would do. I would immediately open up a Excel spreadsheet and track three things. I would track how much money is coming in. I would track my expenses and I would track my mileage. Three things. That's all you have to put on a spreadsheet. Three things. Okay. Simple, super simple. Three things to remember. How much money is coming in? What are your expenses? And lastly, how far are you driving for those things? Like keep things simple. As soon as you start getting complicated and like, a lot of people struggle with that because they're planners and they're like, oh, I got to do this and that. I'm a horrible planner. The fact that I'm like running all this is hilarious because I'm really not. I'm more of a catalyst. I just like make shit happen, which is why social media seems to be. It's like I just throw mud at the wall and like ask controversial questions that I know are going to get people riled up because it's like we'll see what sticks. And most of the time, like with content, for example, like most people are so afraid to put themselves out there and they're so
Right.
afraid of what others will think of them. You need to let go of that. and stop caring. Like, just seriously, that would be my advice to somebody starting out. Stop caring what other people think, especially because, in my experience, most people's opinion of you don't matter. So
Right.
that's the hard truth. So,
That's great advice. Now, would you like to run some rapids with me?
yes, love it.
All right, so I'm gonna throw out a topic in kayaking, and you got a rapid fire. Give me your Mount Rushmore.
Okay.
All right, kayak designs of all time.
RPM, hands down. Um, if we're talking like best kayak ever designed, RPM is my belief.
Okay, you can go 3 to 5 if you want to do like a
Three to
Mount
five.
Rushmore.
Okay. RPM is like an all-time classic. Antics 2.0, in my opinion, is the most modern, best design, I believe. Hands down, two favorite boats, especially here in Ohio because we have less than class three creeks. And if I had to do third, um, Dagger Nova is pretty damn good. And obviously, I'm obsessed with the Jackson Rockstar. I think it's the best
Sure.
spud boat ever designed. But I'm a huge fan of full slices, and I think the Nova was really well done. One, like, hands down. They knocked that out of the park. I'm really impressed with that boat, and I see a lot of paddlers here in the Ohio area that absolutely love that boat. So huge fan. So I'm not going to rank them, but Antics, and RPM are up there for all around best. Playboats are the Nova for a full slice, and then the Rockstar, yeah, would be up there for sure.
Very cool. Rivers of all time.
Golly, Ottawa, Boudeleufeu would be, if I was like top three, and in no
Yeah.
particular order. Those are probably my top three favorite rivers of all time. Favorite creeks of all time that don't run year round. Uh, Raven Fork, Nevados down in Chile,
Hmm.
and I'm trying to do something on the West Coast, but uh, no, and I'm going to do my local favorite here, which is Massey's. I got to give some Ohio love. We have a
Okay.
beautiful. It's only three drops, but because it's my local run, my local Class 5 run. That hands down, Massey's is one of my favorite runs for sure.
Okay. Kayakers of all time.
Be more specific.
However you want to gauge it.
Okay. Um, so this is going to be a shocker. He's going to have no idea that I'm going to say this. But I actually think that Evan Garcia is probably one of the best paddlers,
Oh,
best,
good call.
uh, can enter flow state, and just like connect with the water. Probably better than anyone I've ever seen. And Evan and I don't have a deep relationship, but I've always admired his paddling, and I've admired how he has mastered water at a different level. Um,
Very
in
cool.
term, yeah, Evan. But in terms of like all around best, who wins all the competitions and is a really badass paddler, Dane Jackson. He's known as the GOAT for a reason, and I have to be honest. Like, competing against him, it's like not even fair. It's like, oh my, like, I, I consider myself a pretty good paddler, but the gap between me and Dane, he is like four times better than me. So it's not like he's like kind of better. He is four times better than me, and he's got the scores to prove it. And so, and then, but Nick Troutman is also up there as one of the best, giving Dane a run for his money all the time. And in terms of like one of my favorite human beings who walks this earth,
Yes,
that's probably like Nick is probably that person for sure. Yeah.
absolutely. All right, so this rapper we're gonna run blind, and so
Okay.
you got to rank these, okay? And you get blind ranking, so you don't know what's coming next.
Okay.
And this is a topic you threw out cities or towns to live in for paddling. So I'm
Oh,
going to
damn
give a
it.
city, and you got to
Okay.
place it somewhere in your ranking of 1 through 5, but not knowing what's coming next. I mean, I might say Des Moines, Iowa. I mean, or whatever. So
One.
um,
Okay. Let me ask. Five being like the best, one being the worst.
no, one would be like number one, like the best.
Okay.
Like the best of this would be
Okay.
number one. 5 would be the worst.
Okay. Got
All
it.
right, Asheville, North Carolina.
2. I'm gonna give it a 2 in
Fayette,
ranking.
Fayetteville, West Virginia.
1. I would definitely give Fayetteville 1.
Washington, D.C.
3.
Cincinnati, Ohio.
Oh, 5. Definitely 5. You definitely don't live here for the whitewater. But I will say what's nice about it is that you can drive. So what I've noticed on the East Coast is paddlers stay in their particular zones. Like North Carolina boaters don't go up to the Yacht very often, and yacht boaters don't often go down to run like the
Yeah,
Tellico and the southeast runs. But Ohio boaters get a bad rep everywhere they go, and it's because it's because they can like it's about 5 hours to everything. So it's five
right.
hours for me to go to the Yacht. It's 5 hours for me to go to West Virginia. It's 5 hours for me to go to North Carolina. It's about 5 hours wherever I go. And so yeah, so I would say I might even give it a 4 because we do have play waves and stuff that are good year round. But in terms of paddling, it's you don't live here for the whitewater for sure.
All right, and the last one was going to be Chattanooga.
Chattanooga. Um, I've heard a lot of people really like Chattanooga. I can't
Yeah,
speak from experience because I haven't lived in that area, but and I don't know a lot of those Tennessee runs like they do. So,
yeah.
but uh, through reading the comments, I'm going to rank it a 2 because I think it's pretty damn
Okay,
high on the list. It's pretty high
okay.
on the list for
So
sure.
it's bumping Asheville down to 3.
I don't know. No, no, I would put Asheville above it. Well, I don't
Okay,
know. The green has changed now. I almost posted
has
the. I somebody reached out to me and told me I need to post. New green is better than the old green. Change my mind
okay.
as a rowdy thing. I
You
have
would
not
get a
paddled the new
lot of
green.
opinions on that.
I haven't paddled the new green, so I really don't know. But I have heard that the new green is not good, and so um, that drops Asheville in the ranking a little bit. But there is just so much good boating around Asheville. It'd be hard for me to delineate between Asheville and Tennessee. So
Yeah, of course, Bryson City is my favorite.
that is a good one. Bryson City is solid choice. You have a lot of really good stuff right there.
Yeah, I was going with more metropolitan areas, but okay. So now, Eric, final flow. The river gods have come down and they said, Eric, you had a good run. You've posted a lot of controversial stuff on Facebook, but this is your last time on the river. But the good news is you get to pick your river, you get to pick your boat, and you get to pick your crew. What do you got?
Mm, that's gonna be tough. Um,
Well, that question was not designed to be easy.
I know, I know. So I always thought uh, if the upper gully takes me, um, if I was to pass away on a river, um,
Well, no, I'm
I
not
have
killing you off here. I'm just saying it's your last time kayaking.
last.
No one's looking to whack you. This is
Okay,
just your last
okay.
time on a river.
Upper Golly Fest weekend with my sons with me in some form, whether they're not old enough for the upper yet, but they will be soon. Um, yeah, that would be for sure the last. Like I have a feeling that will come for me eventually. I don't know. I have many years of paddling ahead of me. I pray, but I hope that like that will happen to me where I'll do the upper gully and realize, okay, maybe it's time for me to step
That you're
down from. Yeah,
right. And that's the kind of the philosophy of the question is we all do something for the last time, and we rarely know it was the last time we did it. So if we knew this was going to be the last time to ever kayak, like what would we do? So I always think about it like that. Like, man, there's so many things we do for the last time and we don't know it.
I would playboat every single hole on the upper gully, and I would paddle the upper gully from sunrise to sunset, and I would playboat for multiple hours in every single hole on the way down the river. And like literally, I would paddle the upper gully very slow and paddle everything, and we would be surfing everything the whole way down. Yeah, that would be how I'd want the last one to go for sure. Um, I've I've
That
I've had more time to think about this than most because a huge mentor of mine and the person that got me into paddling, his name is Don Brannon. Nobody's heard of him unless you're a Cincinnati paddler, but anybody that's a whitewater kayaker in Cincinnati learned how to kayak from Don Brannon, and so he has been like such a he's that guy you've never heard of, but he taught everyone locally how to paddle.
mm,
um,
yeah,
and I have watched as he's gotten older, his paddling skills have deteriorated. It is
yeah,
a perishable skill, but he still gets after it and he still pushes himself. And I love boating with him. But age is coming for us all. And so,
that's right.
all of our days are numbered, and we need to be very grateful for every day we get to be on the river.
That's right. Well, that is a great send off right there. Be grateful for every day we get to be on the river. And Eric, I'm grateful for you and everything that you do to bring people into the sport and for being on B Flow sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Brad. This was an awesome night. Thanks for letting me talk about these things. I like to slide in the background and be like I like to start the fires. But when people actually ask me the questions, I'm like, okay, I guess I got to give my opinions here. But it was good. It was great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again.
Awesome. Have a great
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of B Flow Sessions, where we explore how paddlers find their flow on the water and in life. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the show, leave a rating, or share it with a friend. It truly helps us grow the community. And a huge thank you to Pucon Kayak Retreat for sponsoring today's episode. If you're ready for a world-class Chilean whitewater adventure, email me at bflowkayak@gmail.com and I'll help you get dialed in. Until next time, keep finding your flow.